What's up guys, what's going on? Good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time you're watching this, welcome to another video. Today we're going to be talking about the pros and cons of a cassette and a Freecoaster. I made this video a couple years ago. Back then I wasn't like a YouTuber, I was just making videos for a long time here and there. And I made a cassette versus Freecoaster video, and it did pretty well. And that was kind of at the beginning of the end of the cassette, and everybody was switching over to Freecoaster for this odd like ray of sunshine on my face. What the hell have I done? Anyway, it was kind of around the point where a lot of professional riders were switching from cassette to Freecoaster for who knows why. Like a trend, and then everybody started doing it, and then everybody fell in love with it and didn't want to go back to cassette. It was new, it was fresh, a whole new style of riding just arose. But now I feel like people are kind of making the switch back, or it's not as one-sided as it was when it first became popular. Now, Freecoasters have been around, don't get me wrong, but this is when they started becoming popular. Everybody switched over, the pros switched, so the kids were like, oh, I gotta switch. Everybody switched, the pros, the kids, they all switched, and then people were like, oh, I'm just starting out BMX, I wanna learn how to fakie, and I wanna learn how to do fakie tricks better, I'm gonna get a coaster. So that was kind of the mindset, I feel like, a couple years ago when I made this video. But now I'm back, and I'm giving the modern perspective of the Freecoaster and the cassette. Now this video is opinionated, but I have equal love for the Freecoaster and the cassette every single year. Every summer I ride Freecoaster, every winter I ride cassette. I just switch. I'm actually gonna go get some clips at the end of this video to show you kind of the difference riding-wise between the Freecoaster and the cassette. So stay tuned for that. I'm gonna start out with a Freecoaster because that's what's on my bike right now, and then I'm switching to cassette, and I'm staying with cassette for a while. Anyway, let's get into the video. I'm gonna start out with talking about Freecoasters. Now the common misconception is they will make learning fakies so much easier. Wrong. They do not make, I think for just straight fakies, they're a little bit harder. Like, yeah, you do the 180 and you can just sit and you can lock in, but if you're just starting out, having that pedal pressure, first of all, you can control your speed with how much, put more pressure, go slower, and you can do this and it helps you balance out, because when you first start doing fakies, you're all over the place. So if you kind of have a rhythm, it's much easier than if you're just plopped on a Freecoaster and you're just free to go however direction you want. Cassette kind of keeps you in line. Another misconception is they break a lot. Honestly, I don't think that's a misconception. I think they do break a lot. I've had the Odyssey clutch coaster twice, broken 2 of them. I still ride my broken coaster to this day. I've had tons of friends break their coasters. I've broken cassettes too, don't get me wrong. I've broken more cassettes. But most of those cassettes that I broke were cheaper or stock. Alright, so let's get into it. We're gonna start out by talking about the Freecoaster Pros. If you guys haven't already, I want you to hit that subscribe button, like the video, comment what you think, comment what you like better, Freecoaster or cassette. I'm really curious because it's so split these days. People are transferring back to cassette from Freecoaster. It's weird. Oh, and these are dropping January 1st. Don't forget that. Link in the description for my merch. Go check it out. It's the best, I promise. Okay, Freecoaster Pros. So after you've gotten, you know, pretty decent on a cassette and you're somewhat past the beginner stage and you're starting to learn more intricate tricks, variations, learning backwards tricks like a 1 bar, a 1 whip would be much easier on a Freecoaster, because when you go to do the 180 tail whip or the 1 bar and you're gonna land rough because it's your first time landing it, you don't want your foot to land on the crank and then smash up against your frame because you have a cassette. If you have a Freecoaster, you'll land and you'll just go backwards freely. That makes it much easier. But at the same time, you have to be decently good at fakies and you have to have that control to be able to hold it. So if you're just starting out BMX, I do not recommend getting a Freecoaster because it'll make learning fakies in the long run harder. I've noticed this when I do 1 bars down really big sets, or just like 180s, or even half cabbing down sets, or ledges or whatever, it makes it so much easier. I did a half cab bar spin down the biggest set at my local skate park, and I would have not have done it in a million years with a cassette. But with a Freecoaster, I just did a 180, boop, freely through the bar spin down the set. I did a 1 bar down that set. I probably would 1 bar it with a cassette, but it was much easier with a Freecoaster. So you could land backwards at high speeds with the reassurance knowing you're not gonna land and then catch that engagement and fly off. You're gonna land and you're just gonna go backwards. 180 grinds are easier, so your tire isn't catching. It'll keep spinning back with you. You're not gonna have that pedal pressure and it's gonna stop you on that ledge. If you keep a lot of control under your grinds, that won't be a problem. I heard Adam LZ mention that in his video, so I thought I'd throw that in there. It's silent. Sometimes I like this, sometimes I don't. I honestly like the cassette noise. I really, like, a lot of people get annoyed by the profile elites, so they're just like, or the colony wasps. But I think the sound is cool. I also think silent is cool. I'm kind of torn between that. It's 50-50. It's not really a pro, it's not really a con, but it is what it is. Free coasters are silent. Personally, when I watch edits, I think professional riders who ride free coaster are much more flowy and clean, and I just love their style while riding street. Landing backwards and not, you know, landing sketchy and pedaling back, and just that flow, and you can do cab bars much easier, and you can do all this sorts of stuff, fakie whips. Everything that you could do in the streets just going backwards looks much more flowy and clean, in my opinion. Some of you like that classic cassette look, but I just like the flowiness and the cleanness of a free coaster. Another pro is they're very good for street, in my opinion. In the summer, I ride street, so I ride coaster. In the winter, I ride park, so I ride cassette. That's just me, that's just my opinion. Those are my pros for the free coaster. I'm sure you guys have your reasons, that you have your pros and your cons, but like I said, don't forget, this is my opinion. Alright, now on to the cons. They break. Some of them don't, but if you ride hard like I do, like a lot of BMXers out there, you might break your coaster, but at the same time, you can also break a cassette. You can break both of them, but I feel like a coaster is a little bit more easy to just destroy than a cassette, based off my experience and based off many others' experiences. They are heavy. Free coasters are freaking heavy. I'm not a weight weenie whatsoever. I ride 4 pegs, 4 hub guards, got a free coaster. I'm still doing hop whips just fine. In fact, I think a little weight makes you stronger as a rider, and you'll be able to huck bigger tricks like 3 whips down sets much easier than if you were just riding a super light cassette with no pegs. You know what I mean? They're heavy, but at the same time, it can make you a better rider, or it can hold you back. It's just all personal preference. They are heavier if you care, and I personally don't. But the fact that I have been riding this super heavy free coaster with 4 pegs, when I switch to 2 pegs and a cassette, I'm gonna be able to whip so much faster. They can be harder to learn to fakie for beginners. Now, if you're under control and you're kind of getting out of that beginner phase into intermediate or whatever, you started to do variation, 1 bars, 1 whips, 180 grinds, easy spins, hard spins out of grinds, the endless combinations of backwards tricks, it gets a little bit easier and more flowy, in my opinion, with a free coaster. So they are harder to learn in the beginning. I recommend all beginners start out with a cassette. That's just my opinion. They're becoming more and more affordable. Free coasters are becoming pretty cheap, almost as cheap as most cassettes these days. The one I got was like $190, $180, and the same thing cassette version is like $150. I don't really know, but they're becoming more and more affordable. But when they first came out and started becoming popular and everybody started buying them, they were very, very expensive. But they're becoming affordable now, so that's not really. Keep in mind that con is becoming more and more irrelevant these days. No pedal pressure. You can't do tire taps. You look like a douchebag when you're going at the top of a quarter or trying to get up a quarter in the middle of a bowl and you're just dealing with all this slack. When you first get one and you totally forget, you just boom, and that slack hits and your knee slams the stem. It's no fun. There's no pedal pressure. I ride park often. It's winter now, and I still haven't switched to a cassette. There's this huge spine at my skate park, and I'll 1 bar it and just fakie and 360 the quarter that's aligned with it. I just like to do fakie stuff and flowy stuff, 1 whips, down whips, all sorts of stuff. Those are much easier with a free coaster, but generally speaking, these park tricks that are on top of quarters and fly out and airing and everything, they're a little harder with coaster, especially when starting out. Okay, now we're moving on to the Cassette Pros. This video is starting to get kind of long, and I still gotta plug in some riding clips, so I'm gonna make this move a little bit quicker. Cassette Pros, they sound cool. That could be a con. Sometimes it annoys people, but depending on the hub you have, I think they sound pretty cool. The pedal pressure makes park easier. You can bitch crank in manuals. You can use that pedal pressure for manual 180s, manual 360s, manual bars, manual whips, whatever you want. They're much more lighter, which makes generally every single trick in the book a little bit easier. They're more affordable, but like I said, free coaster prices are dropping, but that's not really relevant. There are plenty of them available. Almost every single bike brand out there has a cassette wheel. Not every brand out there has a free coaster wheel. Although I haven't looked in a while. Most brands have free coasters these days, so again, that may not be relevant. They're much more reliable. Free coasters are becoming more and more durable these days, but I still think cassette takes the win on that one. They're harder to break. You can learn tricks easier. If you're out there learning hot bar spins in your driveway and you land and you hit that slack and you land all sketchy, it's harder. But if you have that pedal pressure, that firm landing, it's much easier to learn. Especially like whips and stuff. I remember I landed my first whip on a Freecoaster and it was just weird. I would catch it and the cranks would go like that. It was weird. I should have done it on a cassette, but you gotta do what you gotta do. They are great for beginners. So if you're starting out, get a freaking cassette. It'll make you better and stronger as a rider in the long run. And they're good for parks. So if you're a park rider, you generally have cassette. Now the cons. You can't land backwards quite as easily and as fast. Don't get me wrong, you can still do the exact same tricks, but they're not gonna be as flowy, clean, and easy as a Freecoaster. Backwards grinds are harder, goes along with the same thing. Sometimes they can be loud, they can annoy you or other people. You can get kicked out of spots because you're attracting more attention, but it's just a cassette. Again, Adam LZ mentioned that in his video. I don't really think that freaking matters how loud are bikes. And they're not as flowy for street. So if you're a street rider with a cassette, it's just not, I feel like the style is just not up to par for most expectations these days. But that's personal opinion. If you're a street rider with a cassette, I'm not saying anything bad. In fact, I ride street all the time. I'm more of a street rider than a park rider, and I'm about to switch to cassette, so I'll be shredding the streets with a cassette. So I'm not saying anything bad. Just generally, that's kind of popular opinion, and that's my opinion. I got through the whole list. I hope this isn't too long by now. Let's get some clips so you guys can really get a good understanding of what it's like to have a Freecoaster and a cassette. I don't think I've mentioned this yet, but I have an absolutely insane goal that I want to reach by summer. I want to reach 3,000 subscribers. Which for me is absolutely insane to hit that by summer. For the past like 3 days, I've been getting 10 to 15 a day. And at that rate, we will hit 3K. But I don't think that'll last forever. As of right now, as of you're watching this, we are growing exponentially compared to what I was hitting just a few weeks ago. Just this consistency and you guys subscribing and liking and interacting and commenting and sharing my videos is helping tremendously. You guys really don't understand how much of an impact you make on my life, even though I only have 1.7 thousand subscribers. So what I'm asking for you is if you could please give me a shout out on your social media. You could share these videos with your friends. Anything really to help me reach 3K by summer, because I promise you I will reward you as best I know how if we hit that goal, and it's gonna be big. So if you guys could just share this video, shout me out on Instagram. I'll shout you out on my Snapchat if you do. I'll take a screenshot. But that's my goal, 3,000 by summer. And also comment if you have any ideas of what I should do to celebrate 2K, because we're coming up on that real quick. All right, so I'm down here in my little ghetto indoor skate park. Watch yesterday's video because I redesigned it down here, and it's really freaking fun. But we're gonna start out by getting some clips on that box with a Freecoaster wheel. Alright, I just put on the cassette wheel. Now we're gonna get some cassette clips. In case you haven't figured it out yourself already, I haven't ridden cassette in a very long time. So I gotta figure out what I like to do on it. It's weird. That noise is weird. Just riding it in here feels so freaking weird. I'm excited to get my first legit session on it. Don't know when that's gonna be though, because tomorrow's Christmas Eve as the time of this recording, not the time of the upload. So the next day is Christmas, but hopefully Tuesday the skate park is open, because I wanna try to have a good session, try to see how park I can get with my new wheel. So I don't know. Hope this video kind of helped you understand on where you sit on if you should get a Freecoaster or not, or whether you should switch back to cassette, or if you're just part of the family, part of the movement, and you're watching everything I upload, because I know you're out there and I appreciate that. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Peace.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 M's in my back.